And welcome back to the Haven Homestead Podcast, where we learn and grow together on our way to living more sustainable lives. My name is Chris, and today we're on episode 12, which was actually requested by Karen in Boston, Massachusetts, and she asked how she can grow vegetables for those city dwellers that don't have very much land. So tonight we're going to be talking about space-limited techniques, or how to grow vegetables in small places. I appreciate a request. Sometimes I kind of get stuck on what I should do next because there's so many topics to do that I wonder what people want to hear. So on our Patreon.com, it's www.patreon.com/havenhomestead. I have a survey up for anybody who is interested in telling us what they want to hear about. And I put up a few choices, like 5 or 6 choices that say, do you want to hear about building techniques or gardening things or animal systems? I just like to know what people want to hear about so that I can produce what you want to know. Thanks again, Karen, for that request. So we'll jump right into the topic at hand. It's important before you start worrying about what you're going to plant to know what does well in your area, what kind of climate you're in, what growing zone you're in. USDA has a map of all the United States, and you just put in your zip code and it will tell you what growing zone you're in. Then when you buy your seeds, you can look on the back and it will tell you when you should plant what you're going to plant. So right here in front of me I have a packet of chives, and it tells me that in our area, we should plant them in April through August. They say how deep to plant them, how far to space them, how high they'll get, the plant height, and you can preserve them by drying and freezing. It has all that information right on the back of there and tells you how to sow the seeds and all of that. But when you know your hardiness zone, sometimes that comes in handy when you start looking into buying trees and buying bushes, and they'll say this is hardy to zone 8 or this is hardy to zone 4, which will be like it gets negative 30 in the winter or something. I think we're like a zone 7 out here, and so we have fairly mild winters. So it's important to research what will do well in your area, and that's where you first start. And then you also need to think about what you like to eat. So when you're making your list because planting in a small area takes a lot of planning, you have to think about and purposely put in what you like to eat or what will do well in your area, what you can grow. So after you've written that down, then you want to select small varieties. Blueberries are an excellent container plant, and they look really nice in the fall. The leaves turn like fire engine red. I mean, they look really nice. And then during the fruiting season, who doesn't like blueberries? Blueberries are awesome, and they're considered a superfood. So get dwarf varieties. Like, for instance, the tophat is one that I know that we've had. It's a dwarf variety blueberry, and it stays really short, really small. But I don't think it gets much over like a foot tall or something. So if you were to plant, have it indoors by a sunny window, or if you were to put it out on a porch or a balcony. So when I think about small garden, like people who really don't have any space, I think of people in an apartment building with just a balcony, a balcony so they can step out and get some air, I guess. But that's kind of what I think of when I think of small spaces. Somebody can grow a lot of food on a balcony, and I'll tell you how. So first, plan out what you're going to get. Select a dwarf variety or small variety. You can even have fruit trees. There are such things called a columnnar apple, and what it does is it grows straight up, like the tree doesn't branch. It's one stick that goes straight in the air, and all of the apples set on the branch that's sticking straight in the air. So you don't have to worry about it taking up a lot of space. It's only going to get, as high as you want it to. You just clip it off when it gets 6 or 7 feet tall, and it will just grow you apples on this one stick. And so you don't really need a lot of room, even for vegetables, which are awesome. I mean, that's just, imagine how much food you can grow when all it takes is just, a pot, a 5-gallon pot or something like that to grow it. And the thing is you don't just have to grow the 5-gallon pot with an apple sticking out of it. You can start thinking about succession planting. Well, not succession planting with the tree, but companion planting. I misspoke. So you can think of companion planting, which is when you plant something with something else and they both benefit from being in close proximity to each other. So apples have certain companions that they really like to be planted next to. And I believe that chives is one of those, because chives has a really shallow root. It looks like grass stems coming up, but they're of course hollow if you've cooked with chives or had them on potatoes or whatever, fresh chives. They look like green onions. They're round, and you just cut them off and they'll just keep growing. You can cut the tops off when they get 6 inches tall, and you use them as a culinary herb. They're really good on eggs. They're delicious. They're a delicious plant, but they like to go, they're a good companion plant with lots of other things. When you have your columnar apple, then in that pot you can plant in something that would work with. You have to, research and find out what the companion plants are. I'm not going to tell you how to do everything, how to live your life, but I'm just going to point you in the right direction, and hopefully you'll study enough to and try it. I mean, if you can get apples out of it, your return for your investment, return of investment, that's the ROI, is huge on an apple tree. I mean, say it's $20 for an apple tree, and you get apples for 50 years off of that thing. You're going to be way ahead. And the nice thing about a columnar apple in a pot is if you were to move, you just grab the pot and take it with you. It's not it's not in the ground. It's not a permanent thing. Now you might have to unpot that if it starts to get look like it's not doing so well, because it might be root bound, and transfer it to a bigger pot, but the plant stays compact. Now when I'm picturing this porch, it reminds me of a video I saw with, I believe, Jeff Lawton. That's Geoff Lawton, Lawton, and I believe he was on a porch, if I remember correctly. This is all from memory, but he was on a balcony, and he was talking about the different growing areas in the porch. And one of the parts they talked about were trellises. So if you have 2 walls on this balcony, and I might keep on saying porch, but I mean balcony. If you have 2 walls on it, if it's a private balcony, then you can put a trellis on either side, as long as there's not, like, sometimes I know they'll have a storage door where you can open it up and have access to a little storage room. But, well, in that case, then you'll have at least one where you can put a trellis up against the wall, and then put vining plants at the base of that trellis. Use like a long pot, or you can just use regular pots set in a row. That's fine. And you plant vining plants in there, and they will grow up the trellis, where you can then harvest off of the trellis. Or if you're planning to be there for a long time, you could do something a little more time. They take a while, like grapes or kiwi or something. There's hardy kiwi that will even grow up here in the Pacific Northwest. So it's just a way to maximize, because a lot of people just think of, well, my balcony's only 5 feet deep and 8 feet long, wide, or whatever. But there's a lot of space in the vertical as well. And then once you realize that you have space in the vertical, then you also have the space from the roof hanging down, or the person's above you, their balcony hanging down. And that's when you can take advantage of using hanging baskets. Also, if you have a rail off the front of your balcony that you can put like a window box or something on that'll hang off the edge, now you have the space outside of your balcony. Just a little bit. I don't know if there's rules about that or not for things falling off. Then you have the space outside your balcony, not only inside your little 5x8 or however big the balcony is, but you can have more space outside, on the sides, and hanging down. So with your vines growing up your trellises, you can grow also bush plants like bush beans and bush tomatoes, which they're a little more compact, but it's the way that the plant forms, and they just get kind of bushy, but not really too big or too crazy. And plus, if you have something in a pot, that will limit the size, because if you limit the roots, you'll limit the top growth as well. When I talked about companion planting, I mentioned that earlier. When you plant, you can have a pot that has companion planting in it. So one pot could have 3 different kinds of vegetables or herbs. I like to do this with herbs. I had a pot that, if I can remember correctly, had 3 perennials, like a rosemary, a thyme. I want to say basil, but I know basil's an annual. And it doesn't matter. I had 3 herbs in there, is all that's important. And I was able to get 3 different kinds of herbs out of one plant. And even if I did have an annual, I would just replant that every year, like a basil or a sage or something like that. And that way that I would have all 3 of those different flavors in one pot. And then we had that pot in our kitchen windowsill when we lived in Idaho. We didn't have very much room there, a very small backyard, but we did have plenty of windows, and so we tried to grow a lot of stuff inside. Which leads me to my next point of really use your interior sunlight as well. Put plants by the windows. Have edible house plants. Have your citrus or your edible banana. Your indoor dwarf banana, or whatever. Just be creative with it, but use your windows. And if it's something that needs to be fertilized, the flowers fertilized. If you need to pollinate, that's the word I was looking for, then just know how to do that. So your citrus, for instance, aren't going to pollinate themselves. You need to take a little clean paintbrush and dab the inside of each one of the flowers so that you can get the pollen off and spread the pollen around to the different flowers. That way you actually get a fruit set. If bees can't come in and pollinate, then you're going to have to do the work of the bees. On your house, if you're in a house or in an apartment, use window boxes. Open the window, mount a box on the outside, fill it with dirt, plant things in it, and you can get all sorts of space. You have to be creative with how you use what you have. Also, in those same windows, you can also put hanging baskets inside. So what I mean is, you can have plants on the windowsill. You could have plants standing in the middle of said window. So have your plants on the windowsill, as long as they're not too tall. Then plants behind them from the floor, standing up. Taller plants like the columnnar apple or something like that. Or your citrus trees or something. And then hanging from the window, above the window, like where the curtain rod would be, you could have hanging baskets there. And those would all be doing something. Strawberries do well in hanging baskets. You could have, with just that, if you had 2 windows, a balcony, you could grow a lot of food. And I know you can do it. I know that if you just try, you'll be amazed how easy it is. And it'll be very, so satisfying that first time that you sit down to a meal and there are some peas that you